Hello, Bond fans, and welcome once again. So, unfortunately it's no secret these days that James Bond video games just aren't as popular as they once were.
The Pierce Brosnan era was definitely the high point of the Bond video game series so far. From GoldenEye through to Everything or Nothing, the series enjoyed largely great reviews and excellent sales. But cut to Pierce Brosnan's sudden departure, and Bond license holders EA Games had a bit of a quandary. Until a new Bond was announced, the future of the series was unsure. Coupled with the disappointing sales of GoldenEye Rogue Agent and From Russia With Love, and an in-development Casino Royale movie tie-in game that was much delayed, it was no real surprise that the Bond license was passed on to another video games company, in this case, Activision. This led to a 3-year gap in between Bond video game releases, and after getting rather used to a new one every year, those 3 years were very much felt. After an astonishing start to Craig's tenure with Casino Royale, I was firmly on the quantum hype train, and when news emerged that a game based on that movie was to be the next in the pipeline, I was very much excited, even if my preference for Bond games with original stories wasn't to be met this time.
But it had been 3 whole years since the last Bond game, and boy was I hyped. So, did the game deliver? Well, that's what we're going to look at today as we look at the PlayStation 3 version of Quantum of Solace.
And our story begins where Casino Royale's ended. In a nice bit of filling in the gap between films, we get to see what happens between Bond shooting White at the end of Casino Royale and being caught in a car chase at the start of Quantum of Solace.
Why a bullet-laden showdown at Mr. White's mansion, of course?
The name is Bond. James Bond. We need to talk.
Care to reconsider, Mr. Bond?
The level, of course, serves as something of a tutorial, allowing you to become accustomed to some of the new game mechanics. First of all, you realise we have returned to a first-person perspective, but with pepperings of third-person for specifics, such as a covering system and takedown moves. Both are quite welcome additions in my mind, and they do a good job at showing off the pretty excellent Daniel Craig render they've got here. I mean, this thing looks great. They got the hair, brow, and pout just right. Awesome job on this model. After blasting your way around the grounds, including a very cool shootout in a greenhouse and on a dock, hey, by the way, this place is really lovely. No wonder White was so enjoying taking in the view at the end of Casino Royale.
Yes. But anyway, after that you make your way into the house via the cellar, and it's in that cellar that we're reintroduced to one of my most loathed features of modern-day first-person shooters.
Ah, excellent, a shotgun, just what I need. Oh, wait, I want to keep the SAF. Can I have the... Oh, what? Oh, you mean I have to scroll through my weapons to get to the weapon that I want to drop and then pick up that one? And, oh, God's sake.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else out there shares in my pain of this particular matter, but it's just, oh my god, it's just a feature of modern-day first-person shooters that I cannot stand. I touched upon this in my GoldenEye Rogue Agent review, but here it's just, I long for the days of N64 GoldenEye, of Nightfire, where you could carry, 3 types of pistols, 4 types of machine guns, 2 shotguns, a sniper rifle, a bazooka, a grenade launcher, and still have enough room for that last Moonraker laser. I long for those days so much, and for someone like me who's incredibly decisive, if I'm presented with a weapon here, in the middle of a firefight, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, I don't know if I'm gonna want a shotgun, maybe I'll want to keep my machine gun. Do I drop it? Do I keep it? What if I don't have enough ammo? What if I can't find ammo later on in the level? Oh, it's just, it's more aggravation than it's worth when the fate of the world is at stake. Or the Bolivian water supply, in this case.
It's all fun and games in White's house as you fight your way to locate the briefcase that White walked away with at the end of the last film. However, this objective can only be so important when, if you're anything like me, you take great relish in draining White's wine cellar dry and generally putting 2 shotgun shells into every breakable kitchen appliance the man possesses. Looks like the briefcase has already vanished, meaning the money's gone, but Bond does find his way into Quantum's computer files and manages to download them before all hell breaks loose. Something that this game does so amazingly right is explosions. There's something about the power of them in this game and how the controller rumbles vigorously in your hand. The sound is really good too. Honestly, if there's ever a gas canister around, and even if there isn't a goon stood next to it, I will be blowing it up good. Bond apprehends White, and after an interesting redo of the gun barrel from Casino Royale, we get a title sequence.
Quantum of Solace title sequence. Oh, good lord, that means Another Way to Die. Oh, where are my earplugs? Wait a minute. That isn't Another Way to Die.
Yes, thankfully not a single note of that dreadful song, which I believe I previously described as being the worst song in the history of recorded sound, and I stand by that. The song is fortunately nowhere to be found, and instead we have When Nobody Loves You by Curly, who has a nice sort of Ellie Goulding sound to her voice, and I don't think the song is actually half bad. It's cool how it incorporates bits of the Bond theme, and it has a cool beat. I'm not sure how I feel about the sort of
Burn down to the ground, destroy, create no sound, elements all around.
rappy bit, and some of the lyrics feel a bit sort of teen angsty to me. Lyrics like, if no one can hurt you, then nobody loves you. If no one can break you, then nobody loves you. I just have images of, like, James Bond listening to this song on his iPod at night and crying. Nobody loves me. The credits list an impressive amount of returning cast members from both Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, intercut with shots of Bond speeding away in his Aston Martin, presumably with Mr. White in the boot. And while it's a cool sequence to watch, I can't help but ask, why am I not playing this?
The best Bond video games in the series, in my opinion, and I've stated this fact many a time before, are the ones that offer some variety, you know, mixed in with the shooting action is on-rail segments and driving levels. It fits the franchise perfectly. Unfortunately, Activision kind of moved away from this aspect of the game series during their tenure.
And maybe it's understandable why. With gadgets much less of a feature of the early Craig films, the emphasis on the vehicles kinda petered out a bit too. But even if this was just driving without gadgets, it would be a more natural way to spice up the gameplay. But no time to hang about, the next level is starting. But before that we get to another bugbear of mine about this game, the lack of cinematic cutscenes. You'll see that most of the cutscenes in this game take the form of visualised MI6 communications that are being viewed by, well, yet to be revealed characters. And while they're far from static, I'm such a fan of proper cinematic cutscenes in games. I think they invest you more in the story and are generally more appealing to watch. And while there are some in here, it's just not enough.
I don't find myself playing through Quantum of Solace thinking, oh yes, I can't wait to get to that cutscene where Em and Tanner talk about Bond crashing a plane in the middle of a desert. I want to see Bond crashing a plane in the middle of a desert.
Anyway, just like in the film, M's bodyguard Mitchell betrays her, and so Bond has to pursue.
M, get out.
Ma'am, are you all right?
We have an agent, KIA. White's been shot as well. The gunman is Mitchell. He's on the run.
Sorry, ma'am. Did you say Mitchell?
Yes, Mitchell, my bodyguard.
A fast and frantic chase through underground catacombs takes place, which is super exciting and brilliantly disorienting. You'll be legging it down a tunnel and a baddie will pop out completely out of nowhere and you have to go into takedown mode and have to act fast. It's great. That quick level is followed by the pursuit over the rooftops of Vienna, which is another great level and one which puts me at ease a bit after realising that a feature of previous games that I love has returned. Multiple routes around levels.
What are you doing? Get out!
You know, I feel sorry for Craig. If this was Connery, Moore, or Brosnan, it wouldn't be get out, it'd be, you know, come in.
This is a really well-designed level full of colour and detail and includes several cool interactive elements during the final shootout at the tower. In lieu of a shootout with Mitchell, the game seeks to recreate the fist fight sequence from the movie, but instead of being fully controllable, you are left to press the odd button on command in order to have Bond defeat Mitchell. I've never been entirely sure how I feel about this feature. It'll crop up in a few more Activision-produced Bond games, and while I understand it's hard to have a cinematic-like fight sequence with the user completely in control of a character, It's just that reducing it to a simple press this, press that feels kind of juvenile. A system where you have an option of button pressing perhaps would have been a more effective way of doing this, so you could judge what move to make yourself. If, say, X was jab and square was kick, and if Mitchell made a certain move, you could use your own judgment to pick which move would be best. Anyway, Mitchell is dispatched, and after another MI6 comlink scene, we move to the next level based around the opera sequence from the film.
Now is probably a good time to talk about one of the main features of the game and one of my main bugbears, James Bond's smartphone.
Yes, in a smartphone world, the visibility of gadgets in Bond films have been significantly reduced. Why would Bond need a tiny camera when he has one in his mobile? Why would he need a safe-cracking device when he has one in his mobile? And as such, this game follows that same suit, and the phone is basically the only gadget you use throughout the entire game. But it's far from impressive. You can use it to look at a map of the location you're in, hack into secure areas after cracking the system, view security cameras, and display messages from other cell phones you pick up which are randomly dotted around, which include photos, sound recordings, and even tips on where to find a hidden shotgun and the like.
It all sounds like helpful and interesting stuff, but in practice, I just never find myself reaching for the smartphone at all.
There's a directional guide at the top of the screen at all times, so you seldom need to check maps, really. If you're viewing security camera footage, it's probably because you want to avoid guards, but it's more dangerous to be on your phone than just have your wits about you. And the extra pictures and messages and stuff are just kind of superfluous.
You could argue that some things, like, photos of Vesper or text messages enhance the story, but not really in any meaningful way.
The opera level has a great stealthy feel to it thanks to an excellent subtle sound design and atmospheric soundtrack. As you get further into the level, you'll discover multiple ways of tackling things. Dotted around the place are surveillance cameras, and if you are caught by a red one, an alarm is sounded and guards come running. Now, normally I'm a run and gun and ask questions later sort of guy, but on this level in particular, I do love the stealthiness required to disable the cameras without being seen. It's a cool level. After climbing to the top of the stage and earwigging into Green's conversation with other Quantum members, snipers appear and you have to take them out, and oh my lord, Call of Duty has ruined snipering in first-person shooters. Instead of a fluid zoom in and out, you basically have to press a button to get one of 3 fixed levels of zoom, and when you're aiming, the crosshairs go all over the bloody place, so you have to press another button to hold your breath, and then this makes it still, but as these buttons are the analog sticks, it's super hard to be precise. Often you end up just hovering for precious moments, waiting for the damn thing to line up with where you want it before you can actually shoot.
It makes for frustrating gameplay because instead of relishing a well-earned kill, you're just grateful that it's over.
An explosive end to the level, and it's right on to the next. But before that, we have a cutscene that, Lord, I wish this was presented cinematically. No, actually, I wish we could have just played through this bit. It's Bond and Camille in the dogfight over the desert, and if this was an EA game, you can bet we would have played through this bit. Cutscenes in games should be a way of getting out exposition and telling a story, not teasing you with ideas of levels that would have been super fun to play through instead of watch. I would also hope that everyone who played this game saw the film first, as without that knowledge, I'm not sure much of what's happening here would make much sense. The quantum-based levels skip around so briskly and characters are introduced without much fanfare. Suddenly Bond is with Camille, and if you didn't already know who she was, you'd be like, who is that chick? Anyway, the next level takes place in the sinkhole that Bond and Camille parachute into, and it's another very cool, impressive level. There's a small army of Madrano's men to dispatch of, and even a nice little static machine gun bit. And you can even take down a helicopter.
While I might not be a fan of the lack of variety or cinematic cut sequences, I can't deny that I am having fun, but we are blasting through the Quantum of Solace story at an alarming rate. I mean, there are still quite a few levels left, and I can't imagine that Bond and Camille's trip back to the hotel is gonna take, 6, 7, 8, 9 levels worth of gameplay.
Why are you after Medrano?
When I was a child, General Medrano came to our house. He shot my father, then strangled my mother and sister. I was too young to be any trouble. Next time will be different.
Seems we're both using green to get to somebody.
Then you lost somebody too.
Yes, I did.
Well, wait, what? Huh? What? Huh?
Looks like our man. Burn scars on his face. I think we found our bomb maker.
Stop touching your ear.
Oh, okay, so apparently we're going to pad out the Quantum of Solace game by cutting it in half and sticking another Bond film story slap bang in the middle of it? I mean, fine, fair enough, but it's just so abrupt. It's like, I lost someone too, flashback, here we are, Casino Royale. It's just like, oh, okay.
I guess from a production standpoint it makes sense. It's much easier to make levels out of a film that already exists than one that hasn't even been made, and indeed you can tell that it's the Casino Royale levels that have had the most time and attention spent on them. So yeah, from Bolivia with Camille to Madagascar with Carter. Oh, so Carter lived then. I always thought he got bitten by a snake. Well, I guess some venom can take time to act. The game does an amazing job of replicating the thrilling chase through the building site as you control Bond running up cranes, bursting through walls and leaping off other cranes. The next scene makes it apparent that while Bond decided now was a good time for an extended flashback, so did whoever at MI6 was compiling his files, as we hear that whoever is watching the footage is also watching through this flashback.
Find our field agent.
That would be Carter, ma'am.
Put him on. I want to...
This isn't important. Move on. I want to see what Bond saw. Every face, every file. That's all that matters.
So that's the pretense with this whole narrative structure, and to be honest, I don't mind it. It's quite an inventive way of telling a story, really, and it's a shame. I mean, it probably would have made more sense had the film Quantum of Solace had its original intended ending, but, never mind.
Anyway, Science Museum to kill Demetrios next, and after the most blatant bit of Bond product placement outside of Sony since 7-Up, you control Bond as he makes his way over the rooftops, having plenty of fun with a grenade launcher, and into the exhibit, which is sadly not the Excellent Bodies exhibition, as in the film, but rather aviation or something. If this was a Pierce Brosnan era game, you could bet he'd commandeer one of those bloody things and a dogfight would ensue inside the museum.
Two things to point out during this level. First, the music.
I love the music for this game, and I love that it's so completely different from the film. Not to shit on David Arnold's score, but the obvious directive to avoid using the Bond theme in the film was very annoying for reasons that I have previously explained elsewhere. But here, that directive was thrown out, and we have a nice, proper Bondian video game soundtrack, complete with the famous theme dotted throughout. Secondly, I want to talk about the health system, that is, Bond's health for this game, not the NHS. It's a regenerative health system in this game, which is something that I'm not a big fan of, but more annoying is that as your health decreases, the display has a tendency to go grey while the gun barrel starts edging in from the sides. It's a very distracting feature, especially as when you're in that position, chances are you'll be scrambling for cover, and yet you can barely see, and with all the flashes and sounds and occasional grenades going off, it ends up being a really annoying feature that ends up getting you more dead than you probably would have if, that feature wasn't there. However, I am a fan of when you die, you do get a good, proper blood trickle down the screen. I always like that. After killing Demetrios, it's off to Miami Airport to take out the terrorist before he can detonate a bomb next to that big, impressive plane. It's another great level with enough cameras around to lend itself to plenty of stealth opportunities, and if you're anything like me, you'll have fun messing up people's desks, and specifically the photo frames, which seem to contain pictures of, well, dogs. And, what looks like a seahorse.
I'm guessing these are the developer's own pets or something, but I kind of like it. It's quirky little Easter eggs like this that really endear me to a game.
The level comes to an exciting end when Bond takes out the terrorist, and it's with brisk that we move on to the next level, which is set on a train. Woohoo! One of my favourite Bond video game levels ever is the train one from GoldenEye N64, so any callback to that, I'm very happy with.
Vesper, I hope you gave your parents hell for that.
Of course you realize that if you lose, our government will have directly financed terrorism.
You meet with Vesper, who gives you your mission for the level to eliminate a man called Bliss, who bears a more than striking resemblance to the director of Quantum of Solace, Mark Forster.
A level which involves Bond tracking down and taking out the director of the worst James Bond film of all time? This is definitely a level I can get behind.
This is so close to being my favourite level of the game. It's action-packed and I love the setting, but the constant train hopping you have to do borders on tedious at times. Not the hopping itself, but the mechanics of leaping feel kind of broken. I'm not sure if it was intentionally intended to be disorienting, but sometimes you can hardly move without falling back and landing on the tracks. But the shooting action inside the train is very well executed, and going up and down is lots of fun, all leading to the boss battle with Mark Forster, which for a Bond fan like myself can be rather cathartic.
Die! 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 Oh, that felt good.
Yeah, okay, that was a slight overreaction. I don't really want to kill Mark Forster, and I quite like how his likeness is included here. It's you know, it's a cute little Easter egg, but I'd be lying if I said the conclusion to that level wasn't at least slightly satisfying. And once the train ride is up, we're at the Hotel Splendid in Montenegro, where it's your mission to prevent Le Chiffre being killed by Obano's men. It's an excellent render of Mads Mikkelsen, and I'm thrilled he came back to voice the character. On that subject, the cast of this game is really quite impressive. There's Daniel Craig and Judi Dench, of course, but getting Mikkelsen and Eva Green back was quite the coup. Matthew Amalric and Olga Kurylenko reprise their roles from Quantum of Solace, of course, but rather annoyingly, one character whose voice you hear all the friggin' time that isn't voiced by the cinematic actor is Bill Tanner.
I'm guessing it's like this because maybe Rory Kinnear was cast late into the film production process or something, and they didn't have time to get him in to do the voice record for this, but, you know, it's a real shame because Tanner ends up doing more talking than M throughout this game.
Mr. White, too, is sadly not played by Jesper Christensen, but whether this was at all related to his rather derogatory alleged comments about the series around that time is unknown, but it's another shame. Shooting your way around the hotel is lots of fun, mix of stealth and action, and there's even a nice shower to sit in and have a bit of a cry if you're so inclined. There are a few massive shootouts here in both the spa and the dining room before you enter a stairwell to do battle with Obano, with Vesper doing her very best Stacey Sutton impersonation. At one point, you seemingly take control of Vesper, which is a concept sadly not taken further, but hold on, we have quite possibly the weirdest level of any Bond game ever. As Bond is drugged and needs to get to the defibrillator in his car, you take control of the drugged up Bond as he stumbles his way through the hotel. There are some very cool visual distortions here, and the level does break up all the shooting, but it isn't half strange. If there are any kids out there who want a simulation of what it's like to be drunk, then this is probably a good place to start. Of course, Bond is saved, and the people watching the communication chain decide they've bloody well had enough of the minutiae of this story and skip right ahead. It does beg the question if this is simultaneously Bond's flashback as well as something that Quantum members are watching. Is Bond still in that sinkhole talking to Camille about all this?
Yes, and so after that I retired to my hotel bathroom suite to find a dinner jacket on the back of the door. I looked at the dinner jacket and realised it was not my dinner jacket, so I took it to Vesper and I said, "What is this?" And she replied, "There are dinner jackets and there are dinner jackets," and the one that I was holding was apparently the latter. I still don't fully understand exactly what she meant by that, but nonetheless I tried it on and it was a lovely suit. Then I decided to strut around in my bathroom for a bit, smouldering in front of the mirror. Vesper was looking on in, admiration as she... Oh, I am sorry, am I boring you?
Anyway, we again get a poor cutscene substitute for what should be a driving level. That is, Bond pursuing and then crashing his car once Vesper has been kidnapped. Like, what a wasted opportunity. Again, how could they not have a level where that happens? But instead, we do have quite a wonderful level expanding on the docks location from the film. A fun bit has you protecting Vesper by snipering down enemies that get too close to her while she continues channeling Stacey Sutton.
James! 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 Help me! Ah!
Vesper, I love you dearly, but please, shut the hell up.
I love the quick, explosive nature of this level, which ends with Bond getting his balls bashed, and Mr. White popping up to kill Le Chiffre. Again, would probably have been more effective to see this as a cinematic cutscene, but whatever. Up next, you take control of Donald Sutherland, chasing a red-dressed lady around the back streets and alleys of Venice.
Hello?
Bond? We just heard from the Treasury. They'd like to collect the winnings, but they're having trouble accessing the funds in your account. The money's gone. It's been withdrawn.
I've got to go.
There are several stealth and shooting sections, of course, before we get to a bit that just breaks my heart every time I come to it. Sorry to be forever rabbiting on about this, but how much I loathe the lack of driving sections in this game, but it's so naughty of them here to tease you with it. Approaching this boat, it looks like you're going to get into it and have the ability to pilot it, right? Well, no. It's just a bridge to get you to the next part of the level. Anyway, fun and tragedy quickly follow as the house begins to sink, and you have to get to Vesper quickly before her cage falls into the water. I do love how the level ends too, with Bond picking up a nail gun and you actually get to fire it at Getler. Awesome. I wish the nail gun turned up in other points throughout the game. It feels like we miss a cutscene as suddenly Vesper is dead before we get a nice edit that brings us back around to the present day.
She left her cell phone. She must have known I'd check it.
I'm sure she hoped you would. James, have you asked yourself why you weren't killed on that barge? She made a deal. She delivered the money to save your life.
Mr. White? Yes, who's this?
Find out who she gave it to. And her efforts won't have been in vain.
You catch whoever did it?
No, not yet. Come on, let's get back to the hotel.
I don't know if there's much of a point now, James. You've been talking for so long that there isn't a single drop of oil or water left in Bolivia.
I thought I could trust you. I thought you weren't motivated by revenge.
I'm motivated by my duty.
No, I think you are so blinded by inconsolable rage that you don't care who you hurt. When you can't tell your friends from your enemies, it's time to go.
Whoa, that is actually a really amazing Judi Dench render. I mean, it's a shame that they didn't have more levels to show it off in. This is really the only cutscene it gets to shine in, which is quite baffling considering how much M likes to poke her nose into things in the Quantum of Solace film. You'd think for the game they'd be able to, fit her in all over the bloody place.
It's full steam ahead to the last level of the game now, set at the Perla de las Dunas Hotel, as Tanner explains.
A hotel, nearly off the grid and completely self-sufficient. There's nothing else for 500 miles.
Nothing else for 500 miles? What on earth? This hotel gets more and more ridiculous the more you learn about it. I mean, what the hell do they have to offer any potential tourists?
Boy, I say, boy, excuse me, but I've got something to ask you.
Oh, yes, how can I help you, sir?
Well, me and my wife, baby, we arrived here late last night. It was quite a drive from the airport, as you can imagine. Now that we're dressed, we want to know where the sights are, what we can do while we're here. You see, we love our out-of-character holiday destinations, so that's why we came to Bolivia.
Well, we have a waitress. She could bring you a nice tall glass of beer. I'll just alert her now.
Well, thank you kindly, boy, but I'm good for beer right now. We want to go out and, see some of the locations. My wife loves elephants. You got any elephants?
Well, are you sure? It is a lovely looking glass of beer, honestly. I mean, she could bring one for your wife as well.
Son, I said it once, I'll say it again. I don't want a beer. Now, what can we do while we're on vacation here? You got a pool, a spa, you got some old tower somewhere for us to see. What, son, what? Oh, all right, I admit it. Building this hotel was a terrible idea. It seemed like a really good thing at the time. Like, yes, we'll build it out in the middle of nowhere. It'll be complete isolation for any guests that come here. But the only thing is, we didn't even have the foresight to put in a spa or a pool or anything like that. Oh, all my savings are in this place. I'm ruined. I tell you, ruined. Well, son, I'm no businessman, but even a Louisiana State policeman like myself can see that just don't make good business sense. Well, there must be something here, at least. Something that we can see. No, well, we do have an entire basement full of hydrogen cells, but the whole thing is so fragile, even the slightest touch could... Sir? Hey, Maybell, look. Oh, yeah. Hydrogen cells.
Anyway, this is quite a challenging final level. There are lots and lots of armoured baddies to take out, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't die at least a couple of times when things ratchet up and a small army is dispatched at once to take care of you. The Craig model looks really cool in this section, by the way. I mean, he looks so good with his sunglasses on, despite that having sunglasses on inside would probably be a bit of a hindrance in real life. I actually really like this level a lot for actually giving you the chance to have a good look around the hotel. It has always been one of the more curious Bond locations for me. I really don't understand. I know it's like an observatory or something in real life, but in the world of the movie, I never got it. Its only selling point seems to be that it's self-sufficient, but beyond that, it's not like there's a spa or a sports zone or anything. Like, what would make people want to travel here? I mean, you know, other than, I don't know, the appeal of being in complete isolation? Probably goes some way to explaining why there are absolutely no guests here at all. Anyway, as in the film, Camille is the one to kill Medrano, while you as Bond have a showdown with Green. It's a regular shootout rather than pouring motor oil down his throat, but maybe that's all for the action-packed best.
And once Green is vanquished, we have a cutscene to wrap up the story, and quite possibly set up the story for the next one.
You alright?
Medrano's finally dead, and I keep thinking, now what?
It's over for you, but not for me.
General Medrano is dead. Green as well. Congratulations.
For what? White's still missing and the organization is still out there. I need a name. The man at the opera.
Guy Haynes. I need you back, Bond.
I never left.
Now, hold on, White. They've got my name, nothing more.
Go back, show me the last part. The diagram.
I'm going inside.
We need Haynes alive. Remember that.
Yes, famously, the ending of the video game is based on the original ending of Quantum of Solace, the movie, which involved Bond going after Guy Haynes and Mr. White, killing White and interrogating Haynes. This scene was removed from the movie as it was felt it was best to end Quantum of Solace with Bond finding his Quantum of Solace instead and tossing Vesper's necklace into the snow. At the time when I first heard about this, I was really angry and wished they'd included it, especially as it didn't look like they were ever going to revisit Mr. White or Quantum again. But I was obviously impatient. With Mr. White's return in Spectre, I'm very glad the door was left open for his return, and keeping him at large just kinda makes him all the more badass. If I ever do an updated top henchman rundown, this guy would probably come pretty high.
I guess the game couldn't really have ended in any other way, considering the whole conceit of the premise here is that Haynes and White are looking through MI6 comm data. It's just super abrupt. I mean, I guess it's alright.
I did wonder if maybe originally there was more and we actually saw Bond kill White in the game's cutscene, but then it turned out they cut it from the film, so they had to hastily fade out here. I guess we'll never really know, but whatever. We have a Bond theme to tune us out with the credits.
Tanner, you remember that briefcase we were looking for?
Hard shell, silver case, $115 million in poker winnings. How could I forget?
It seems we're looking in the wrong man's estate.
Yeah, James Bond may return, but I don't think that briefcase of money will be doing anytime soon. I mean, I didn't even think that was still an issue at this point. Like, well, anyway, that's the main story, but what else does the game have to offer? Well, along with the usual array of difficulty modes, there are plenty of trophies to earn during the main game, which may keep you coming back for more if you're a 100% completist type, and of course this wouldn't be a Bond shooter without multiplayer. However, this is a new generation of gaming, so split screen is gone, and instead we have online multiplayer. I'd actually forgotten how much I really like this multiplayer. I hadn't played it for years until this review, but boy is it fun. There are lots and lots of levels and game modes. The only problem is, most of them are unplayable. Not because they're bad. Well, I mean, they might be, but I wouldn't know because there's never anyone else on anything but Team Conflict. Granted, this is one of the best modes for shooting action, yes, but sometimes I might want to mix things up a bit with Golden Gun mode or whatever. It's frustrating that you're so reliant on basically hoping that at least 3 other people from across the globe want to play the same mode at the same time. An example of how much I must have loved this multiplayer is that, well, I went to the effort of unlocking everything. You can make your own custom weapon sets based on the things that you buy in the weapons shop. Using points and playing matches. There are lots of cool things to choose from, but my personal favourites are the gold-plated weapons. You know someone is a badass if they're carrying around a golden machine gun. I just love it. There are also grenades, including the incredibly frustrating proximity mines, and power-ups like extra health. It actually is super fun and fast-paced, and I really love this multiplayer, but does anything about this picture say James Bond to you? That's the only real drawback for me, and to be honest, a drawback from several online Bond multiplayers. Aside from the occasional level, hello facility from GoldenEye, there is nothing Bondian about this mode. I just so wish you could have chosen a classic Bond character skin or something, or at least have, like, I don't know, proper villainous uniforms based on guards from You Only Live Twice and have all the MI6 agents wear tuxedos or something. I don't know, the mode is just missing that Bond world sheen, and if it had that, it would be pretty much perfect. But the gameplay is great. I do bemoan the fact that there's so much multiplayer focus is on online these days, and you can't just get a load of mates around and team up against an army of bots like in other Bond multiplayers, but I guess it's always going to be more satisfying taking out a character you know is being controlled by a real person somewhere in the world, and nothing can detract from the fact that this multiplayer is really well put together and lots of fun. So overall, Quantum of Solace is a much better game than I remembered. I hadn't returned to this one in a while, and perhaps I'd unfairly mired it with my less than stellar impressions over time of the movie, but the game is a fun, if slightly plain, first-person shooter. Firstly, I must say I was disappointed when it was announced this game would follow the story of the movie rather than being an original Bond story. I feel like EA Games kind of spoiled us by largely staying away from just recreating the films and giving us new Bond action, new gadgets, new girls, new villains, a whole new story. Even their version of From Russia with Love strayed from the film so wildly that it's completely unrecognisable in parts, and for the better in my opinion.
Now, I'm far from being a big gamer at all, so one of the main things to take me into a game is the story. I want to play the game so I can play through a story, get invested and involved in it, and if I already know what that story is before I play the game...
But the gameplay is great. New mechanics like the covering system and takedown attacks work well, the guns on offer are varied, and explosions and headshots are, ever so satisfying. It is missing so many of the fun inclusions from previous series entries, like a variety of gameplay and greater accessibility to fun weapons, but it does what it does well. The levels are well designed and there are fun bits to explore. It's cool being able to walk around locations from the film. The cast is super great, and I'm amazed that they actually managed to get Eva Green and Mads Mikkelsen back for just a few lines of dialogue, really.
I'd also like to talk a little bit more about the fact that those characters are included here at all, because this is, correct me if I'm wrong, the Quantum of Solace video game, and yet half the levels in this game are based on another film entirely.
It kind of further highlights just how slapdash the Quantum of Solace movie was. Of course, the game was being developed while the movie was shooting, and as rewrites were happening on the set of the movie, it would have been impossible for the game to replicate it exactly, which is, I guess, why they sought to include the Casino Royale levels and focused on a select few key set pieces from Quantum. But even the inclusion and exclusion of smaller elements make you wonder exactly how close to the deadline did the film incorporate certain changes. The gun barrel being integrated with the action, and the change of ending, for example. Was the gun barrel ever supposed to be placed at the front of the Quantum movie? It makes the game unusual in that it's so trying to capture the feel of a film, but when the film barely existed when the game was being made, they didn't really have a chance.
But outside of curiosity, there is a solid game here, don't get me wrong.
It's lots of fun to play Quantum of Solace. If you can find it at a good price, I highly recommend it. It's just a more lukewarm reception than some of the older Bond titles. I just don't feel like it's as vibrant as, say, Nightfire or Everything or Nothing. And maybe this is because the Daniel Craig era just doesn't lend itself as well to video games as the Pierce Brosnan era did. Well, I feel like the next game in the series is a much better gauge of this. The 4-year wait between Quantum of Solace and Skyfall was as excruciating as a laser slowly making its way up to your groin, but fortunately we had a few Bond games, including one with a completely original story, which I'll be looking at next time. James Bond 007 Bloodstone. But just one more thing before I go. Obviously, I couldn't have made this video, or future video game reviews, without the help of a load of you guys who backed my Kickstarter campaign so I could buy the equipment needed to make this review. Your generosity is golden. So, thank you, Chris the Curry King, Lewis Christian, Tom Stania, Philip Coghill, Peter Scott, Raul Montero, Mike Grist, Alex Popple, Inez McIntosh, James Hunter, Daniel Holmes, Saul Montague, Cole, Lawrence Windrush, amazing name, Chris Hayes, Reese Roberts, Edward Himmel, Paul Verrecchia, David West, Westwood Drift, Stephen Ellis, William V, or William 5, whichever one that is, David Irwin, Aidan T, Joe Baumber, Cornel Van Fletteren, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Justin Kilduff, Ryan Murphy, Angel, Dylan Maloney Fernandez, Sebastian Mevius, Dean Jones, J.S. Metcalf, Scott Edwards, Tan Kit Hoong, Josh Parham, M.A. Moreno, Giles Williams, or A. Gideon, Anthony Friedlin, Riders2354, Jay Dryden, Greg Coppin, David Ranson, Shaw Harvest, Joseph Barone, Aaron Clark, Lover of Hell, Joseph Lloyd, Jonathan Big Boy Barlow, Luke Hoffman, Professor Wiggins, Charlie McElwain, Craig Stevens, thank you Craig, Ben Colpus, Rob Ailing, Auric Goldfinger, I thought he was dead, Stephen Bell, Zwoby Zwobstra, Jack McMorrow, JMC Certified 007 Expert, Chapman Films, William Renners, and Josh Trett. Thank you so much to all of you guys. I mean, I'm honestly, like, in your debt. Like, without you folks, donating, this video would not exist, and nor would future Bond video game reviews. So, thank you, really, from the bottom of my heart. It means so much. Thank you so much. And I hope you all enjoyed the exclusive video reviews you got of the Johnny English films and Operation Kid Brother. So long for now, Bond fans.